Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of Love versus Manipulation. Today I just want to talk a little bit more about this idea of manipulation, where it comes from, and kind of how we can begin healing it. There are so many destructive coping mechanisms, there are so many destructive behaviors, belief systems, and dynamics that we have in relationships that can really tear apart our relationships with other people, whether we're talking about romantic partners or work coworkers or our kids. And so there's all of these ways that we show up in relationships. And especially I've been talking a lot about romantic relationships lately. And I've done several videos talking about attachment style, attachment theory in relationships, and what it looks like to be a anxious partner, an avoidant partner, or a secure partner. And I've talked a little bit about some of the behaviors that show up when we're feeling avoidant or anxious in our relationships. And you can go back and watch some of those. But I talked a little bit about what this idea of love versus manipulation looks like in relationship as well. And I talked about the idea of unconditional love for ourselves and for other people, and what can happen when we don't have that. And the thing that happens so often when we don't have that really strong foundation of love for ourselves and for other people is that we can slip into manipulation. And I gave several examples of what that can look like. There's many ways that we manipulate other people. And so it's out of this ability to try and control an outcome, right? So one way that we manipulate is just to tell a lie, or maybe even a half lie. We filter the information that we give to people. A big one is people pleasing. And we people please in order to control their perception of us, the way that they see us, because we want to control that outcome. We don't want to feel rejected. We don't want to feel like we're being judged. We don't want them to see us as high maintenance or needy or whatever else it might be. And so we manipulate the way that we show up, and we manipulate the information that they receive, the things that we tell them. And we manipulate through arguing, through pushing, through threatening. You know, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen. So we're trying to control an outcome. And that's ultimately what manipulation is. Anytime we're trying to control another person or an outcome, that's a form of slipping into manipulation, right? And it's this idea of acceptance versus control. We don't want to just accept that somebody else might see us in an unfavorable way. We don't want to just accept that, we may not get invited to the birthday party. And so we kind of turn into this culture where we're constantly trying to control other people, we're trying to control outcomes, and that can be really exhausting. And not only can it be really exhausting, but it can destroy our relationships, because there's this foundation that everything is being built on that is faulty, right? It's not trust, it's not love, it's not honesty. It's this idea of control and manipulation, and people feel that, and that feeling can be really toxic. And so today I just wanted to talk a little bit more about why we do that, and what is the answer for beginning to kind of move back into love, in this idea of acceptance, radical acceptance. The ability to love yourself, the ability to speak your truth is so important. And there's reasons that we so often don't do that and people please instead. And the ability to love yourself no matter what the outcome. So to be in total acceptance of, even if I lose my job, I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to say what's right. Right. And to be in total acceptance of the other person. So I talked about, coming out to my family and the different experiences of that everyone had. And why did I not tell the truth about that earlier? Why was I not loving myself enough to speak my truth? Because I was afraid, right? There was fear. And so I'm going to talk about that. Why do we manipulate or show a different version of ourselves? We do it because we want to control the outcome. We are afraid of what will happen if we speak our truth. And when you love yourself, and when you start to grow that relationship with yourself, at some point that becomes intolerable to lie anymore. And as you begin to show up for yourself, you have to decide, am I able to accept and love not only myself, but other people as well, and allow them to have their own experience of that truth? And what does it look like to love someone, even if we're not able to control their response, even if they have an unfavorable response? What does it look like to love them in the face of that. And so this is that idea of unconditional love for both of you, right? And the reason that we so often don't want to show up in total authenticity, in total truth, and in love for ourselves, standing up for ourselves, saying what we want, you know, it's because of this idea of circumstance resistance, right? And so again, that idea of fear, we're afraid of the outcome. We don't want a specific outcome. And so we manipulate, we lie, we people please, or sometimes we argue, we push, we fight. No, you have to do it my way, blah, blah, blah. Why do we do that? Why do we push? Why don't we just say, okay, you know what? You don't have to pick up the dog poop. You don't have to empty the trash. That's fine. It's your job, but you know, I hear that you're not wanting to do that. And so why do we fight and push and try and control them and control their behavior? Because we don't want to accept them not doing it. Why? What comes if we just allow them to be themselves, even if that version of themselves is not what we would have wanted? And I think that part of the reason is because we are trying to avoid, so many of us don't know how to draw healthy boundaries. We don't know how to show up in our relationships when people disappoint us, right? So we have expectations, we have things that we want. And when people don't meet those expectations, we so often slip into control and manipulation because we want the right answer. We want the right outcome. Yeah. We want our partner to empty the dishwasher, to do the thing. Because what happens in our body, in our brain, if they don't do it? All of a sudden there's all these feelings that come up, there's all this meaning that we attach to that. And so I think oftentimes the reason we do this instead is because we are trying to avoid either specific feelings. So especially with people pleasing, we don't want to feel rejected or judged. We don't want to feel angry. We would rather fight and get them to empty the dishwasher so that we don't have to feel disrespected. We might feel that way anyway. But there's certain feelings that we don't want, we are resistant to, right? And so we slip into these manipulation or control tactics. The other one is conflict. I mean, especially again with people pleasing or lying, we don't want to have a conflict. We don't want to have a fight. So it's easier to just do whatever they want us to do or to tell them whatever they want to hear because we don't want to have conflict. And so we're avoiding that. The other one I think is making difficult decisions. And this comes back to boundaries, right? So why is it that we feel the need to control other people's behavior, other people's opinions, their perceptions? Why is it that we feel the need to control the outcome, the decision that our boss makes, all these things that we feel like we have to have so much control over? And I think, again, it's because oftentimes there might be a difficult decision. If somebody has an unfavorable response to your truth and who you are and the way you show up in the world authentically and with love and honesty, and what happens if they have an unfavorable response? What happens if your brother calls you and tells you, you know, just so you know, being gay is a sin, did you forget? Now I have to make a decision about how I want to deal with that, right? There might be feelings that come with that. There might be conflict, or I might have to make a decision. If somebody is violating a boundary and you speaking your truth about that, you may have to make a difficult decision about how do I want to deal with this? We might have to have a difficult conversation. I might have to decide, do I want this person in my life or do I not want this person in my life? I might have to decide, okay, I'll have you in my life, but it's going to be under these really strict parameters. And so I think so often our brain, we have fear and resistance around having to have difficult conversations, having to draw boundaries, having to communicate our expectations. We don't want to have the fight. We don't want to have to talk about it. We don't even want to have the discussion. And so often it's so much easier, even when it comes to fighting, pushing, threatening, that's something that our brain is so used to. It's almost easier to just try and force or control the outcome or manipulate the outcome. And that feels easier sometimes than having to learn these really hard skills about having difficult conversations, creating boundaries, managing expectations, communicating expectations, right? How do I love somebody even when they're being horrible to me? What does that look like? What does unconditional love mean? And I want to tell you that unconditional love does not mean that you have to get treated like garbage, right? You're allowed to be in total love and acceptance and say, this person gets to be who they are. I get to be who I am. And these are the boundaries that we're going to have so that we can both be in love for one another. And so there's all these hard skills that we have to learn. And what I want to tell you is that, again, the reason that we're in fear and resisting these circumstances, the reason that we show up this way is because we have a belief system, right? We have a belief that it's going to be painful to feel certain feelings. We have a belief that conflict isn't safe. We have a belief that we're not capable of making these hard decisions and that that's going to feel harder, right? And so we have to develop a new belief system. And that belief system, part of that is knowing that you are 100% worthy. And so I think we oftentimes, and that you are 100% lovable, exactly the way you are, with all of your feelings, your big feelings, your thoughts, your belief systems, your opinions, your sexual orientation, your preferences, the life that you want to live, no matter how much money you make or don't make, the job that you want to have, like whatever it is that you want in life, the way that you parent, all those things, like you are 100% worthy, you're 100% lovable. And so you get, and if you're able to move in to that love, that radical acceptance of yourself, of your preferences, of who you are, you get to want what you want. It's okay to make requests. It's okay to want things. And those things don't have to even be reasonable. You just get to be who you are. And when you realize that you are 100% worthy, that you're 100% lovable, that nothing can ever add to that or take it away. It doesn't matter your behaviors. If you're, that book about how to love a porcupine, right? And you have this belief that I'm a difficult person. Be difficult. You're allowed to be difficult. That doesn't take away from your worthiness or your lovability. And so when you can be in total acceptance and total love for yourself, that's when it makes it so much easier to just show up and be authentic and be real. And then the thing that you have to realize is that that's true for other people too. So no matter how they show up, whatever their behaviors are, whatever their beliefs are about your sexual orientation, your preferences, your wants, your needs, maybe your partner does tell you you're too needy. You have too many big asks. Couldn't you just bring it down a few notches, right? Maybe that is how they show up when you show up all big and bright and beautiful and speak all your thoughts and your opinions and your requests and have all these needs. Maybe they don't like it, and that's okay. They get to be exactly who they are, and we get to be in love and acceptance for them. And that might mean that we have conversation. That might mean that we make decisions. That might mean that we reorganize our relationship a little bit and the boundaries and the parameters around that. And that's totally okay. So this comes to the last part, is that we have to realize and remind our brains that we don't need to resist all these circumstances. We don't need to live in fear, because no matter what comes up, we can handle it. We are 100% capable. We're capable of having difficult conversations. We're capable of making tough decisions. We're capable of communicating our wants and our needs and of standing up for ourselves. We're capable of being in love. We're capable of dealing with whatever comes up. We know how to have hard conversations. We know how to have our own back. We know how to make sure that we're safe. We know how to love other people even when they're being difficult. Right? And so as we develop and learn these skills, we know how to experience rejection. I've been there. I've done that. I don't have to be afraid of that circumstance. I don't have to resist or be afraid of rejection. I know rejection. I've been there. I've experienced rejection, and I'm 100% worthy regardless of who rejects me. I'm 100% lovable, and I know I'm 100% capable of dealing with rejection. I'm 100% capable of dealing with grief. I don't have to be afraid of showing up in my relationships and of falling in love. I can go all in. I can be totally naked. I don't have to be afraid of doing a Facebook Live. I don't have to be afraid of what people are going to say. I get to just be 100% myself, because I know that I'm 100% capable of feeling any feeling: shame, rejection, fear, anxiety, confusion, uncertainty. I welcome every single one of those feelings. They're totally fine. I don't have to resist them or be afraid of them. Failure, I have totally experienced failure. I'm good. I'm capable. And so when I know that I'm worthy, lovable, and capable exactly as I am, when I love and accept myself and I build that relationship with myself, that I'm like, yeah, I'm a badass. I'm beautiful. I'm wonderful. All the parts of me. And I want to open up, and I want to be authentic, and I want to be my real self. As I start speaking that truth, I don't have to manipulate or control an outcome, because no matter what the outcome, Doesn't matter if I lose my job because of the truth that I speak. I'm willing to go there because I love myself that much, right? It doesn't matter if I lose, my family says, I don't accept you as who you are, and I don't want you in my life anymore. Ooh, your brain wants to be afraid of that and of that pain. And your brain wants to tell yourself that we couldn't handle that kind of rejection. But I know, actually, I can. I'm strong enough. Does this make sense? And so I believe that this is the work where we begin so that we can step out of that manipulation and that control, and we can step into love and acceptance. These are the things that our brain's afraid of. And if we can learn how to face those things, we don't have to control our way out of it anymore. So I wanted to read an email that I got from somebody. And of course, I'm not going to share any of the names, but so many people have been kind of reaching out to me about some of the things that they've been dealing with lately as we've been talking about relationship. And I just want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that she brought up, because this is so common. And I feel like it really relates to everything that we just talked about. And I want to encourage not only her, but anyone else who is feeling these kinds of things to think about what might be underpinning these pain points. Someone emailed me recently and was asking me about getting some help and getting some coaching. And she said, one of the things she said is, I'd like to be less inflammatory to other people. She said, I want to be supported by other women to grow in healthy and meaningful ways, which is what my Facebook group is about. But when she talked about all this pain that she's experiencing, she talked about being inflammatory, right? I want to be less inflammatory to other people. She said, I've been called a narcissist. And she said, I have difficulty holding down jobs. And she said, I normally just end up finding another job, moving away from situations that I've created. And she said, I just can't seem to stop. I keep burning bridges. And she said, I want to be honest with myself about who I am. And I want to be able to create meaningful bonds with people and not be so self-destructive. Guys, this is powerful because so many of us do this. This is the human experience, right? This isn't just this one person. And so why do we keep burning bridges? Why do we keep having these self-destructive patterns in our relationships? Why do we do that? Where does this come from? And I think a lot of it is this element of control and manipulation, especially when we talk about narcissism. But honestly, with codependency, it's the same. Anxious, avoidant attachment styles, we all do it. It just shows up in different ways. So if you go back and look, how does an anxious person manipulate and control? Oftentimes that's through people pleasing, right? How does an avoidant person manipulate and control the outcome? Totally, they do it too, don't they? Absolutely, we all do it. We just have to look at our lives. How are we doing? How are we showing up this way? Where are we slipping into these patterns? Where are we getting out of love and out of acceptance? This is a big one, accepting ourselves, but also accepting other people. And talking about being inflammatory to other people, if you're noticing this in your life, ask yourself, am I trying to control them? Am I trying to control an outcome? Do I argue? Do I push? Do I fight? Do I criticize? Am I critical of other people? That's inflammatory. Am I an ass kisser? People don't like that either, do they? Because they can feel it, right? They can feel that manipulation. Do you find yourself doing those same, like she talks about not being able to hold down jobs? What about relationships? What about money? Do you find yourself being able to make a lot of money, but then it goes away, right? And these cycles, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And she finally said, I want to be honest with myself about who I am and be able to create meaningful bonds. In order to be honest with yourself about who you are, it begins with telling yourself the truth. That idea of love and acceptance for yourself, and then you have to be able to extend that to other people. All right, guys, I'm going to stop there today. If you guys want to talk about this more, if you want to be able to do this work in your relationships and in your life so that you can have healthier, happier relationships with yourself, gosh, that's really where it all begins. That's the most important. And then that's what allows you to be able to have that with other people, with your kids, with your spouse, with your coworkers. So let me know if you guys want help with any of this. Let me know if you want to participate in our 6-week series where we're going to be talking about boundaries and expectations and how to love people even when they're showing up in ways that are difficult. And we're going to dive into all this. So I love you guys. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.